Hello, in this video I wanted to talk about working with coils and coil building. Coil building is a really nice way to generate hollow ceramic form. It's a slower, more incremental build-up from a base that gives you a lot of time to move the form with subtlety in and out in multiple directions as of course you're building in hollowness as well. So the base is the first place we're going to start. Really, there's a couple of ways to think of starting a base. There's many ways. One is from a base that you actually pinch so that it starts, and of course this is an oval shape, it's a little more symmetrical, but it could be any kind of shape to begin. Let it stiffen so it can hold, this vertical part of this little pinch form can hold the weight of the wet increments or coils of clay as I'm adding them. If I started with this too soft, I wouldn't get very far before it would start, to kind of change form and collapse. The other kind of base that you can make is from a flat form where you're building the first vertical with the first coil. So just really a flat shape. We're going to make a little slab. A slab is just a compressed even sheet of clay. I'm going to take my wedged material and I usually just kind of pound it with evenness in mind. Of course, the pounding is building in compression. Okay, it's also nice to think of my favorite politician right now. Okay, so then I usually work with a rolling pin. I'm just going to kind of continue to compress it. The thickness I'm paying attention to because with the idea in mind that these hollow forms really like it if there's an evenness to the wall all the way through, including the floor. Whatever thickness this slab is, I'm really saying is what the thickness of the wall will be. So if this is the base for a 6-foot sculpture, that's a little on the thin side. If this is a teacup, that's a little on the thick side, somewhere like that. So you want to think of that. Once I've got my flat form, of course I can cut out whatever shape I want that will dictate the three-dimensional hollow form. I'm going to make just a little amoeba kind of shape just for the sake of something different. Okay. Just stretching it a little thinner. Okay, so now I've got two different bases. So let's talk about forming a coil. So a coil, as I said before, is usually just a linear form that I'm going to sort of build up a wall from the bases. There are no one way. Coils can be flat, they can be round, but I'm going to talk about some things to think about when you're forming your coil. So you can see I took my amount and just kind of compressed it loosely. Once it's more linear, I might have gravity roll it with more compression, letting gravity stretch it longer. At some point, when it's starting to get thinner, I feel I have more control over what's happening for evenness if I move to the work table. So I'm going to spread my fingers apart with gentle pressure down. And then from the center, it's more pressure to stretch it out. And I'm rolling it, 360 each time so I don't get a flat tire by working just part of it. So another thing that's very helpful is if I start my coil with pointed ends, because when you're rolling out, you're taking the outside part of this material goes further than the inside. And then it can start to create a hollowness in the end or a well, trapping air in the end, which of course we know we don't want. So those pointed ends will compensate. All right, so I'm just rolling it out with evenness in mind. If it's a little thin one area, I have a lighter touch when I pass the next time and a heavier touch on the thicker area to even it out. How thin a coil relates to the idea you have for the work, the scale of the work, because if you start with really thin wet coils, you're not going to be able to get too far vertically before it needs drying time to be able to take the next wet coil. Otherwise, you're just going to have something collapsing under the weight. So it's a lot of waiting with smaller coils in a way, a lot of stopping and starting. So this is why I recommend when you're building with coils, it's a great idea to have two pieces at least going at once, so that when one needs to dry, to stiffen, to be strong enough for the next wet coil, you can be working on another piece. And then when that one needs you to stop, this one's ready for you to keep adding. So you get almost 2 for 1 in the same time frame. You're not sitting there on Facebook watching, waiting, that's excruciating. I don't like that. So I'm going to stop about this thickness. It's a little thicker than I said the piece was going to be, the slab that I'm attaching it to. But I can take this thicker piece, and as I'm adding, I can pinch it up before adding the next increment. So I'm in control over the thickness. Better a little too thick than a little too thin, is in my mind. So now, because I've got 2 different drynesses, I'm going to score and slip the first coil. So you remember from the last video, I'm just roughing up or cross-hatching the area where the coil will be attached. I'm going to put a little slip from my slip container into that cross-hatching, just around the periphery of the shape, my little amoeba peanut shape. Okay, now I've got my coil. I'm putting compression down into the slipped area, and I'm kind of pinching it to thin it and push it down. I'm working on a turntable, or we call them banding wheels, just to make it easier to work around my little shape as I'm building. Okay, when I reach the beginning of the first coil, I have a decision to make for the form. If I place this coil on the outside rim of the first coil, I'll start to build the form wider on a diagonal line from the center of the hollowness. If I place it on the inside rim of the previous coil, I will be able to arch it in to close the form in. And of course, one side could be going out and one side could be going in. There's a lot of complexity that you have in terms of what the form actually becomes from the base. So I'm going to go ahead and attach it to the outside on this side. Now the way now that I'm working with a coil on a coil, I am really kind of making a U connection. I'm pushing some material from the coil I'm adding around the edge of the previous coil, like a U. That, instead of just laying it on top with just a little pressure, because remember, the clay is going to be moving, and in the shrinkage, I don't want seams to open up or cracks to open up between the coils. So I really want material and compression there. Okay, so again, I'm just moving around, I'm overlapping. Okay, now on this side, I'm going to start to attach it to the inside and arch it in and close it in. And I'm arching it in because remember, when you've got something that's going in, gravity is going to be coming down. If it's flat, there's deflection and sagging. If it's an arch, that will support it against gravity. It's just that self-supporting structure. Okay, like that. So, just getting some more clay. Just quickly roll another coil. So the other thing about, once I get a few rows up, I usually start to work on compression to make more of a unified strong wall between what were the stronger strips of the coils. So let me just get a little bit more attached here. Okay, so you can see I've got a few vertical rows going on my little peanut shape. So how I usually do that, I like to use scrapers or ribs. You might use a flexible, these rubber ones are really nice because there's different stiffnesses. This is a really soft one. This is a more rigid one, but flexible. The metal is good. It really can be flexed because that flex gives you a curve to inscribe that matches the form. So you're not flattening a curve when you're attaching. So what I would do is I would flex my rib and I'm going to work up and joint. The pressure on this wall is with the intention of really bringing those coils together into one unified compressed wall. And it's still very soft, so obviously I can make changes as well by stretching into the form from the inside out to kind of bring a different curve to it. Okay, so you can see I was really working on the outside there with compression. Now, if I'm building, slowly building to make a 6-foot tall sculptural form that's hollow from coils, I would probably want to be compressing the inside as well because I would need that structure to support that pretty large scale ceramic. If this is just an olive tray and it's going to have a little foot and be finished to be on the table, I might want the rhythm of those more loosely coiled surface on the inside. You know, you might like the visual of the strips to be in the wall. That might be part of your idea. So, you know, there's no one way it ever is, but compression inside and out will give you the maximum kind of structure to work with as you continue to build on top. I'm just going to go ahead and compress it a little bit more. Okay, so that's it for now. That's how to get started with your coil projects. And I'll be back with another video soon. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.